plan was to dive into the draft. Really dive deep. Dissect the latest big board. Analyze the top prospects. Evaluate team strategies. Maybe even get into potential trades. But then something came up that needs to be talked about. Because when a team like Dallas makes a move, especially this time of year, it raises eyebrows. We're talking about a new addition to their offensive line, Saahdiq Charles. A name that might not shake the league, but one that absolutely deserves some attention. Charles, who had recently gone through workouts, has now officially signed a one-year deal with Dallas. And right off the bat, let's just throw out a word that might define this move: depth. That might be the perfect way to summarize it. Depth is the name of the game in the trenches, and that's exactly what this signing brings to the table. Nothing flashy, but potentially very important. Now, the exact financial details of the deal haven't been made public yet, but we can make some educated guesses. Considering the timing and circumstances, it's safe to assume the guaranteed money is minimal. Maybe just enough to cover basic off-season costs. That's it. And that makes sense, because there's no reason for Dallas to throw significant guaranteed cash at a player who doesn't have a secure spot on the final roster. So what made Charles available? That's where it gets interesting. He actually retired last year. Unexpectedly. Just walked away. This was after he had earned the starting right guard job with the Tennessee squad, beating out another player who, by the way, is still with the team. But before the season even kicked off, he decided to step away. No official explanation was ever given. It was one of those vague exits that leaves people guessing. And funny enough, there was a similar situation this offseason with another player who has since landed on a new team. So, clearly, there's precedent. Charles stepping back onto the field now means one thing. He's going to have to fight for his spot. There are no promises, no guarantees, and certainly no big payday waiting. It's going to be an uphill climb. Looking at the broader picture, this fits into a larger trend with Dallas this offseason. The roster is already crowded. At this point, there really only seems to be room for their draft picks and maybe a handful of undrafted free agents, 5 at most. So if Charles is getting a spot now, it probably means someone else is getting cut later. Maybe a current undrafted player. Maybe a practice squad holdover. But someone's going to lose out. This is a move that brings in veteran presence and a little more competition. That's something Dallas seems to be favoring this year. Adding experienced depth rather than relying entirely on raw, untested talent. Now, does this guarantee that Charles makes the team? Absolutely not. In fact, the odds may still be stacked against him. But the point is that he brings versatility, and that's a quality that coaching staffs love, especially when talking about offensive linemen. Charles has played at multiple spots: left tackle, right tackle, both guard positions. He hasn't played center, but outside of that, he's lined up just about everywhere. And that type of flexibility matters. It gives a team options. It gives them insurance. And for a player trying to make his way back into the league, it gives him a fighting chance. The right guard competition in Dallas is already crowded. Nathan Thomas is in that mix. Jack Anderson signed a futures contract and is still hanging around. Then there's Earl Bostic, an undrafted free agent from a previous cycle. It's a deep room, and everyone's trying to earn one of those final roster spots. Charles is stepping into that chaos now. He's not guaranteed anything. But if he can show enough during camp, enough to prove that he still has something left, then he might just carve out a role for himself. That's the thing about this signing: it's low risk. If it doesn't work out, the team can move on with almost zero consequences. But if it does work, if Charles regains some of the promise he showed coming out of college, then it's a sneaky good pickup, and Dallas has done this kind of thing before, bringing in players with potential upside, letting them battle it out, and sometimes striking gold. Speaking of college, let's rewind for a moment. Charles came out of LSU with a lot of intrigue. He was tall, 6'4", and tipped the scales at over 320 pounds. Big body, strong base. He had the frame you look for in a starting NFL lineman. But there were red flags, too. Maturity questions, failed drug tests, suspensions. All of that played into why he slipped in the draft. He ended up being picked in the 4th round, 108th overall, which was pretty much in line with a lot of analyst projections, but still a slight drop considering his talent level. At one point, he was considered a day 2 pick, but those off-field concerns hurt him. and they may still be lingering. Because let's be honest, when a player walks away from football right after earning a starting spot, it raises questions. Questions about motivation, about reliability, about whether he's fully committed to the grind that this sport demands. The NFL is unforgiving, and once you step away, getting back in is never easy, especially when you didn't leave on your own terms or if there were unresolved issues behind the scenes. So what does Dallas see in Charles? Honestly, probably a shot in the dark. A chance to bring in a veteran who's still relatively young and see what he's got left. The team isn't betting the house on him. They're just opening the door a crack. And if he walks through it and shows he belongs, great. If not, they move on. No harm, no foul. That's the beauty of a low-cost, one-year deal. At this stage of the offseason, every roster spot is valuable. And if Dallas is using one on Charles, it's because they believe he can compete. He might not make it to the final 53, but he's going to be in the mix. And his ability to play multiple positions could be the thing that gives him a slight edge over other fringe guys. Not to mention, having someone with real game experience, even if the results haven't always been stellar, can make a difference in those crucial moments when injuries start piling up mid-season. Right now, the vibe around this move is quiet. It's not making headlines. But in the trenches, this is the kind of signing that can quietly pay off down the line. Not every roster addition has to be a blockbuster. Sometimes it's the under-the-radar veterans who end up playing key snaps in big games. And when that happens, you look back at moves like this and realize just how important they were. Of course, it's not all upside. Charles's performance with the Commanders in the 2023 season left a lot to be desired. He gave up a high number of pressures. Not entirely his fault, sure, because that offensive line unit as a whole struggled. The quarterback play didn't help either, with delays in getting the ball out, creating extra stress up front. But still, the tape doesn't lie. Charles didn't hold up well in pass protection, and his run blocking wasn't anything to get excited about either. That's why there are no illusions about what he brings. This isn't a move to find a new starter. It's about competition, it's about insurance, and it's about finding bodies who can step in if needed. The Cowboys know what they're doing. They're not expecting Charles to turn into a Pro Bowler overnight. Realistically, the only way he ends up cracking the final roster is if something dramatic happens. Maybe he outperforms expectations by a mile, or maybe there's an injury that opens up a spot. Otherwise, his chances are slim. But again, that's not the point. This is about building layers into a roster. Because once the season starts and the injuries come, and they always do, teams have to dig deep. And if someone like Charles can step in and hold things together for a few weeks, that makes this signing worth it. Now, just for context, Charles was listed at 6'4", 321 pounds. That's prototype size for an NFL guard. On paper, physically, he checks a lot of boxes. But physical tools have never been the issue. The concerns with Charles have always been about discipline, about consistency, about how much he truly wants this. Back in the draft process, some scouts flagged his arm length as a limiting factor, and that's why he was never seriously projected as a long-term tackle. But at guard, there was potential, there still is. The question is whether he can put it together mentally and emotionally. He was placed on the reserve list last August, shortly after being named the starter. And then came the quiet retirement. That sudden decision left teams cautious. No one really knew where his head was at. But now, with this signing, Dallas is giving him another shot. It's not a high-stakes gamble because financially, it's basically irrelevant. It doesn't move the needle in terms of salary cap. It doesn't impact compensatory picks. It's as low risk as it gets. And when you look at how he was evaluated pre-draft, it all tracks. On my own board, I had Charles ranked around the 136th spot. He was taken at 108, so pretty close. That tells me teams were weighing the talent and the baggage and found a balance point. He had second-day talent, but the off-field stuff pushed him down. Multiple failed drug tests, maturity concerns, even a suspension back in 2019, all of it factored into his draft day slide. And now, years later, those same red flags are probably still influencing how teams view him. But again, this isn't about betting on a star. This is about building competition. It's about creating tough choices when the team has to trim down the roster. If Charles comes in and shows he can be reliable, if he embraces a backup role and brings value across multiple positions, then he might just stick around. If not, the team will move on, no strings attached. It's the kind of move that won't generate headlines today, but it's also the kind that can quietly shape the back end of a roster. And those last 5 or 6 spots matter more than people think. So, how would you grade the signing? Is this a smart depth move by Dallas? Or is it just another body in camp with no real shot at making an impact? Drop your thoughts. Give it A, B, C, D, or even an F if you're not convinced. Because this is one of those signings that sits in the gray area. It's not exciting. It's not flashy, but it's part of the process. And in the NFL, every piece matters. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In a move that's turning heads across the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys are reportedly making a strong push to acquire quarterback Chris Oladokun, a name that has quietly built momentum behind the scenes, and now might just be ready for the spotlight. Known for his resilience, adaptability, and Super Bowl-winning experience, Oladokun's journey from practice squad regular to potential game-changer is nothing short of cinematic. Could this be the missing piece Dallas has been searching for? Chris Oladokun's path to relevance has been unconventional and inspiring. A 2022 7th-round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Oladokun's collegiate career stretched across South Florida, Samford, and South Dakota State, where he showcased flashes of athletic brilliance and mental toughness. After a short stint with the Steelers, he found a home and back-to-back Super Bowl rings with the Kansas City Chiefs. Though much of his time was spent on the practice squad, he remained a trusted depth option behind Patrick Mahomes, learning from one of the best. What sets Oladokun apart is his patience and poise under pressure. After being waived and re-signed multiple times by Kansas City, he finally saw his first NFL action in the Chiefs' 2024 season finale against Denver, logging 5 snaps and a 5-yard rush. It was a small moment statistically, but symbolically massive, a testament to years of quiet grind. The Cowboys, known for taking bold steps under the leadership of Jerry Jones, seem to believe Oladokun's story is just beginning. Sources close to the team suggest that Dallas is intrigued not just by Oladokun's resume, but by his untapped potential. With Dak Prescott's future still a point of discussion and backup options offering limited upside, Oladokun represents a low-risk, high-upside play. He brings a winning mentality, valuable postseason culture, and the versatility to contribute both on and off the field. For a team hungry to end its decades-long Super Bowl drought, those intangibles could prove invaluable. While nothing is official yet, the Cowboys' interest sends a clear message. They're looking for more than talent. They're seeking heart, hunger, and humility. Chris Oladokun may not have the household name yet, but if Dallas makes the call, the NFL world might soon be talking about one of the league's most unexpected and inspiring quarterback ascents. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.